This episode of Success Through Connections is brought to you by Legacy Realty Group, North Florida. The team that treats your home, your time, and your goals as top priority. Real people, real results, real care.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Success Through Connections. Today, my guest is Rosemary Ravinal, and she is a TEDx speaker. She is a speaker's coach, actually, with high-profile leaders, and she talks, I'm sure it's her language is Spanish and English, and she is a former international media executive and broadcaster who transitioned into her first love, which is public speaking. So we'll have to find out more about how that transformation happened. She is also an author. Her book is called The Joy of Thinking Out Loud. And then she co-authored a book called The Difference, Essays on Loss, Courage, and Personal Transformation, which actually made the Amazon Top 100 list in the self-help and motivation categories. That's quite impressive to be able to do that. She was a senior corporate communications leader and spokesperson for some pretty big Fortune 100 companies like Avon, AT&T, Sony, Ericsson, Toyota, Discovery Channel, and quite a few of them. So that's awesome. I can't wait to talk about that. And she is an advisor and contributor to Big View video platform, which is a platform that I use all the time. I love it. It's the teleprompter video recording. It's a great tool. So if you haven't tried it, try Big View. So Rosemary was born in Cuba, but she was raised in New York. So welcome, Rosemary.
Thank you. This is a joy to be with you.
I'm so happy to have you. I wanted to jump right in. You are the communications expert, and we all need to learn how to communicate better when we are in person or we're virtual. So I wanted to talk about that and a lot about nonverbal body language, because that's so important. It's like your face, your body expressions, they can tell a lot more than what your words are. So can you tell me, how did your career shift from and get into the communications field from where you were? It's like you have a passion for communication and nonverbal communication. How did that happen?
Well, I need to take you all the way back. So clearly the resume summary that you read shows that I've been at this a long time. So I have had many jobs and been really honored to work with big companies and travel the world. However, it didn't really start that way. I was a stutterer. And just in the last, I'd say about 3-4 years, Zelda, I have taken the leap to be public about it. It was a source of shame for most of my life. But then once I stepped out into this arena of helping people elevate their speaking, I said, I need to confess that as a way to show that we all have obstacles.
Yes.
There's always what I call a dragon that we have to slay in order to speak our truth, to speak with impact, and to claim our place in the world.
Yes.
So I decided to be public about it, and I've received so much support and sense of community because so many people who are in this space of being public speakers have had to struggle with that. And that's been the impulse, was like the Mount Everest to climb, to overcome, to achieve bigger goals in life. So I started as a stutterer. I was traumatized as a child and didn't speak for a couple of years, mostly because of separation from my family when I came from Cuba. I was 7.5 years old. But fast forward, I struggled with stuttering for a long time into my early 30s. Voice therapy, all kinds of programs, psychological counseling, thinking it was really in my head. What really did it for me was just going out there and speaking. And I happened to be drawn into the track of public relations and journalism. And that called on me, of course, to be a communicator in public arenas. And so I found that I was in this quagmire of, I'm really terrified. I'm afraid to take a misstep and stumble on a word. But at the same time, I kept being pulled into it as my salvation. So it was being called on to speak on behalf of companies, big companies, and to really fulfill that role, plus my own personal mission to overcome the stuttering. And mind you, once a stutterer, always a stutterer, which I think is a real benefit to me because I'm very aware, very self-aware of how I speak. So it's a high kind of consciousness of everything I say has consequences, has to be said correctly, has to be said with authenticity. And if I stumble, but the point is that it's given me a heightened awareness of the importance of speaking. And I convey that to my clients, many of whom have accents, many of whom have weak voices, or they perceive that they have not a commanding voice, but a weak, submissive voice. Everyone has issues. What do you do with what you have to bring it to a level where people will want to hear from you? And mind you, we're not talking about orators that are commanding a room of 20,000 people. It can be one-on-one. It can be 1-on-10, 1-on-100 in any kind of setting, because how you communicate in one place really is the way you communicate with everyone.
Yeah. It always amazes me, people who have stuttering issues and then they can sing beautifully. It's like, how do you do that? I don't understand how that can be, but it is. So that's it. Well, you would never know that you ever had a stuttering issue because you speak so fluent. So it's shocking.
Thank you. And by the way, Zoldo, the singing was one of the steps. It was a music teacher in high school invited me to sing in the choir and to do a solo performance. And that was just something I'll never forget. However, the solo was it was from Funny Girl. And I always struggled with the words with P. So here I am, people.
Oh, wow. Yes. That would have been.
I was able to sing it, of course, without any issues.
So that's great. So you got into the body language style of communication, because somebody can say something, but their way their faces or their expressions, it can mean something totally different. So when someone is studying body language, how important is it that it's compared to the words that they're actually saying, and that you're looking at their body language, but yet their words are saying something different?
Yes. It's a matter of being synchronized. Very often, people will be so focused on the words and getting the words right, on maybe vocal projection, on all those things that you as a communicator know, the rate of speech, the prosody, the tone, all these various vocal elements. But they forget about the body. They forget about the face, the gestures, and particularly about the arms and hands. And they do it almost automatically, like a reaction, just you say something and the hand goes up and you're not aware of it. But if you use it and harness it as part of the message, then you have a choir.
Yes.
Or you have an orchestra, because it's not only one instrument that's being played, it's all instruments are being played together.
Have you ever,
So once you,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
please.
I was going to ask you, have you ever had the experience where you're speaking with someone and you're reading their body language, and so you think, I need to adjust what I'm saying?
Yes, certainly if someone is resistant, is nervous, fearful, hesitant, suspicious,
Yeah.
or not trusting. And you see it in the hunched shoulders, maybe in the crossed arms, in a sideways glance, not looking at you eye to eye, but maybe looking at your mouth or looking at your chin. And there is a sense of a not expansive, but limited, restricted body position overall. Maybe crossed legs if the person's sitting. So you sense that, but you also sense it in the energy the person is emitting. Right? We're all about energy. We're emitting energy, even when we're not saying anything. So you get a sense of that person's mindset if you know how to read the signs. But mind you, there's always an area that's exploited as far as body language. The people who say, well, I can read, I can tell this person is so-and-so, or I can tell your personality type by this. I think it gets a little bit into too much pop culture or pop psychology. There are people who are experts, highly regarded individuals, well-trained, certainly to do, FBI work and the kind of detective investigation and so forth. But that's a different category altogether. I don't think we're here to try to figure out, if my date is, my blind date is, right, exactly. I would hope to have been able to tell that or identify any red flags before we actually got together. But the point is that there's just a lot of it is common sense. But my point is, are the movements, the gestures, the nodding, the smile, is it congruent with what the person's saying? When there's a disconnect, then it's where you really start to wonder, what is that person's real intention?
Are there any body movements or body language that shows I always hear about the power pose and things like that. Is that a real thing?
It is, but it all has to do with context. Where are you? Who are you standing in front? I mean, if you come into a room and you take that, I can't do it here because it's where we're limited in our real estate here. But if you do that, that fearless girl pose of the statue down in Wall Street in New York City, that kind of
right.
Woman, it looked a little bit ostentatious and pretentious. But you can have a power pose just by standing straight with shoulders back, taking deep breaths from your diaphragm and making eye contact, or what I call really owning your space when you come into a conference room, or you walk into a conference stage, or you actually are doing just a networking, as you do so much networking, networking the room. It's really how you carry yourself.
Right.
But it's all of you. Yes, it is how you stand. And many people tend to have a bit of hunched shoulders or not put the chest out like a peacock would, but just really standing straight. What happens when you stand straight? Well, you're breathing better, which means you have oxygen. More oxygen is going to your lungs and to your brain. Your circulation is better. You're more grounded in the sense of you're in a space where you could pivot. You could, from there, extend your arm and shake someone's hand, right? You can do so much. You can pivot and gesture and go around and greet various people if they're gathered in a small group, but you're grounded. And so that's sometimes not as visible or as physically evident. It's a lot of it is a mindset.
Yeah. So if someone's nervous before they're getting ready to go speak publicly, are there any kinds of tricks to the trade for body language or, the communication style that they could project calmness?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I just recorded a video coming out soon on my YouTube, which is about getting over the symptoms of glossophobia, of a fear of public speaking, of that panic that sets in. Of course, there's the symptoms and then there's the root causes. The root causes take a lot more time to address. But the symptoms, let's say, one of the ones I love to use is thinking about something you love, visualizing something you love, visualizing the end of your speech when you're hearing the applause, visualizing the effect and the benefit you're going to give those people, or visualizing your children or your garden, visualizing where you're going to go this weekend if you're sailing in these beautiful blue waters, visualize you in the bubble bath afterwards to treat yourself to a reward after having done a big speech. That's one thing. The others have to do with your body's reaction, the sweating, the shaking hands, the red blotches that you might get in your neck and face that may be visible. You can deal with that easily with ice packs. What that means is your body's overheating. So find some ice or cold water and put it near your neck, all the pulse points, your wrists, and you'll see that will go down significantly so that it won't be evident. It also helps with the perspiration. What else? Listen to music. Listen to music that you love. Maybe it's your favorite comedian. Really do a pattern interrupt. Don't dwell on, oh my God, am I going to forget? Oh God, are they going to like me? You know what? You and I know. We all get nervous.
Yes.
Everyone. And if you don't, remember the famous Mark Twain phrase? There's two kinds of speakers, those who are nervous and those who are liars.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take a 30-second break here so that we have time to hear from our partner sponsor, and we'll be right back with Rosemary.
When it comes to buying, selling, or managing rental property, don't settle. Choose the professional team that's experienced, knowledgeable, and yes, they actually answer the phone. Legacy Realty Group North Florida is the full-service real estate firm that delivers peace of mind. With over 16 years of local expertise, their responsive and dedicated team makes the process smooth, personal, and stress-free. Whether you're selling your home or looking for a reliable property manager, Legacy Realty Group North Florida has you covered. You'll find their info right in the show notes.
And we're back, and we're talking to Rosemary about different communications and body language communication. So welcome back, everyone. I wanted to ask you about communication styles and getting your message across with body language and verbal when you're in a virtual meeting And as opposed to when you're in person, because when you're in person, it's one thing, but it's another thing when you're virtual and you're looking at a room full of people, maybe in a Zoom meeting or something. How are those differences in body language taught?
Yes. In fact, Zelda, that's where my deep interest in body language started. I knew about it, but I didn't really identify it or explore it as its own rich field for discussion or for coaching. It was when in 2020, we had to live in this little rectangle that I realized that there was a missed opportunity for us to step up and try to make this exchange as human as possible. Meaning that how can you take this limited space that we have and turn it into almost like we're looking at each other face to face? How do we animate it? How do we bring it to life? Well, there are many ways to do that. I created something called the Zoom score, which are 10 different elements that are essential for a professional presence on Zoom or Teams or whichever platform you use. The point being that, first of all, you have to know where to look. So I'm looking at you via my lens, but I'm trying to, and I hope it's coming across at the other end, as if you're there in front of me, eye to eye.
Right.
So often people look down, they look to the side, they're poorly framed so that you can barely see, their shoulders, or they're poorly lit. If you can't see the whites of people's eyes, then there's something wrong. You have to be properly lit so that, again, your best presence, your best version of you in this space. And everything else, what's around you, what is animating your picture. This is a picture. The visual part of it is essential. So the body language on Zoom is important because there are ways, even with the limited space we have, of using our hands, of gesturing, of doing active listening. So when you're in the mosaic of your participant and you are responding to what's being said,
Right.
you can nod, you can shake, you can basically do, you can tilt your head. I call it, what my dog does is, the tilting of the head and the nodding.
Like, what are you saying? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That shows I'm curious. Tell me more.
Very good.
So there's so much that we can do with our body language in this little rectangle that lets people know I'm alive, I'm interested, I want to know more. This time together is worthwhile. It's not a must, it's a want to.
So do you have some favorite quick fixes for someone who feels awkward about their posture or their hand gestures when they're speaking?
Sure. Well, the posture comes from breathing, the breath is everything. If you're breathing correctly and you're really breathing from your diaphragm, that will adjust your chest and your shoulders, because you can't breathe like this, right? You have to breathe open. So an open stance also signals to people that you're trustworthy. You have nothing to hide, that you're there and ready and willing. The other that I tell people is make your hand gestures really more controlled but consistent with what you want to say. So if I want to guide you, if I want to, for example, do a time travel from this time to this time, I'm going to use my hands almost like the little bouncing ball that was used in old time cartoons to follow the bouncing ball of a song. You're guiding people along. You are keeping a tempo. You're keeping time with what you're saying. And so the hands can be almost like, I call them physical emojis. You look at the emojis, right? You have the this, and you have the thumbs up and the thumbs down, right? And you have the applause. And so many of those emojis come from hands.
Yes.
And so if we use our hands as living emojis, right? And I want to do an exclamation point. This is important, right? I have 10 exclamation points right here. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So think of it that way. And then you can use them much more confidently, because people say, I don't know what to do. And so what do they end up doing? They cross their arms, or they put their hands in their pockets, or they do the flying microphone, right? When you're holding a microphone and then you're doing this and you're supposed to keeping it here. There's so many ways that inexperienced speakers tend to use their hands for nervous energy as opposed to having a controlled motion that accentuates what you're saying. There's also scientific evidence that the percentage is a little sort of dubious, but up to 60% greater comprehension of what's being said when you use expressive gestures or complementary gestures.
Yeah. So does body language differ with different cultures?
Sure. There are cultural norms, and you need to respect that, both as a visitor to another country or when you're dealing with multicultural gatherings, people, gathered in a particular location. So you have to really observe. You have to mirror, in a way, the mirroring that we do as humans, as many animals mirror the energy and the gestures and the actions of other animals. We can mirror what others are doing and sort of follow the lead of what they're doing. There's some cultures where touching is not acceptable, like in Japanese culture.
Right.
Yeah. And there's others where it's expected, where maybe you don't hug. I mean, in Latin cultures, it's very common to even kiss or hug someone you're meeting for the first time. A lot has to do with age, with rank, with gender. But generally, there's a lot of touching, hugging, kissing that happens, and that's acceptable.
Wow.
But in other cultures, that touching is rude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Expensive. So you really have to do a little homework, know whose company you're in. Like anything else, we are connecting with other people in the way they will be most responsive. So just as we choose our words carefully, we have to choose our actions too carefully.
So Rosemary, is there any one tip or one powerful tip, I should say, that about mastering communication through body language that you could leave our audience with? What would that one tip be?
The one tip would be just stand up straight. Really just open posture. Just own your space. Be grounded. Be grounded. Let's put it this way. Let me add to that with something much more practical. When you pose for a photograph with you in the company of other people, which we're doing every day, right, particularly in networking events, don't cross your arms. Don't cross your arms like this. Don't give a three-quarter, right, one shoulder forward, and pivot a little bit on your forward leg a little bit. Have a little bit of sway, right? And then do a three-quarter and don't cross your arms. Don't put them in your pockets. Just let them hang. If you raise your arms and then just let them hang naturally, there's a little bend in the elbow, natural bend. Just let them hang there.
That's just great advice, especially I know when I'm posing with a group of people for a picture, it's like, do not cross your arms. Don't put your hands. It's not flattering. It's not even,
you see it every day, don't you?
Yeah, it's not flattering. It's like, put your hands just to the side and just smile. But I love that. Turn yourself through. Think of yourself as taking a picture. That's a great. So I have this one question that I love to ask. It's my signature question. Our show is called Success Through Connections. So is there a connection that you've made personally that led to some success or an opportunity for you? Or were you able to open up the door of opportunity for someone else through a connection that you had?
Yes. Let me give you something more recent. I have many answers that I could give you, but let me give you one that's fairly recent. I like to do work for younger professionals, to be a mentor, to give of my time and talent to help others advance. And so I've always had that because I never received it when I was coming through the ranks. I was never really mentored. I never found a good mentor, or maybe I just didn't know how to ask. But I like to be a mentor. Anyway, one of my mentees was starting to work for a very large insurance company. And this was pre-COVID. So when I started my business was at the end of 2019. And I gave her a lot of time and we would meet weekly. And there was to me, a very strong personal connection. Well, as it turned out, mid-2020, she landed in a very important decision-making role in an global insurance company. And I was her first choice to come in to do a multi-year training program on virtual executive presence, so that I received this unexpected reward where I invested in this young woman and she had me top of mind and recommended me for this opportunity. And I was able to really kickstart my business with a very significant contract that allowed me to really grow quickly during those difficult years for many people during the 2020, 2021.
That's a great story, how the mentee helped the mentor. I love it. That's a wonderful story. I've not heard anything like that. That's awesome, Rosemary. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Can you tell our listeners, how can they reach you should they want to reach you about coaching them and what have you? Speaking.
Well, my name is Rosemary Ravinal, Ravinal. And that's my website, rosemaryravinal.com. Everything you would need to know about me is there, including a link to schedule a 15-minute free exploratory call. I have lots of downloadable materials. I do workshops. I do one-on-one coaching, and I do everything in English and Spanish.
That's right.
And my name is unique. So if you come across another Rosemary Ravinal someplace out there on the globe, please let me know, because as far as I know, I'm the only one living with that name. So I would welcome any inquiries.
Well, thank you again for being on our show, Success Through Connections. And for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe and share this audio or the video version that you're listening to or watching. And until next week, I'm Zelda, your host, and keep making those connections, because that's where the success lies.
When it comes to buying, selling, or managing your rental property, don't settle. Choose the professionals at Legacy Realty Group, North Florida, the real estate company that gives you peace of mind.